So what efforts are going on in the House right now to defund this group, which is receiving public money, to stop holding us hostage from funding these felonious acts? Because that's exactly what they are. Joining me right now, Representative Diane Black with the great state of Tennessee. She's put forward a proposal to fight to defund Planned Parenthood. Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining me. What is the latest in the House where it concerns the battle over this funding?
Thank you, Dana, for having me. This is such an important subject, and I appreciate your bringing this up because so many of the American people still have not seen the videos and know what goes on. And once they do, they're really just incensed by what's happening at the Planned Parenthood, especially with our taxpayer dollars. But my bill would put a moratorium on any funding and all funding for Planned Parenthood. And as you probably know, and many of your listeners know, it's not just the Title X funding, but it's also the Medicaid funding and other grants to the tune of about $500 million a year, $500 million a year. And so we put a moratorium on there and we would do investigations here in our committees, as well as we have asked for an investigation to be done by the Attorney General, Loretta Lynch.
Yeah, and it would seem that would be a reasonable request. Let's put a moratorium on this funding because we are investigating this huge, basically, for the lack of a better way to put it, it's a lobbyist group. We're investigating this group that receives so much public funding. A group like this needs to be held accountable, and they need to be transparent as to what their money is being spent on and what they're doing while they're being funded with public dollars. Now, to me, that does not seem to be at all partisan. That does not seem to be any sort of political flashpoint. So I would assume, just seeing that, I'm sure that Democrats want to be known as accommodating requests just for financial transparency, that they would go along with this.
Well, right now we have 170 sponsors. We only have one of those being a Democrat that's actually signed on, but I think it will be really interesting when the bill comes up either on Thursday or Friday to see how many others join us, because behind the scenes I have had members who are pro-choice tell me that despite the fact that they support abortion, they do not support what's happening there at Planned Parenthood. Now, will they have their votes show that? I don't know. They have not told me that personally, whether they would vote for this or not. But again, this is not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is a humane issue of how a baby is being treated. And I don't want to be graphic, but in one of the films, as you may know, you've probably watched them all, they talk about preserving the neural tissue, which is the brain tissue, in the way that is best to preserve that, to transport it, is by just decapitating the baby and sending the head along to the researchers. And talk about it in a way as if this is not a human child. And we know now this is not a blob of tissue. If you are taking a brain, a liver, a heart, lungs, liver, this is a baby. This is not just a blob of cells.
Right,
so
exactly.
A couple of things here, Dana, is I think it's important for the American people to actually watch these videos and hear what's going on, because unless you do that, you will buy what Planned Parenthood tries to sell out there, that they're an organization that support women's health issues, and this is certainly not women's health.
Yeah, and that brings up the question about the community health centers, because we've heard so often from Planned Parenthood surrogates that, well, if they freeze the funding or if they defund Planned Parenthood, well, then there are going to be all of these women in the streets, Representative Black, that are just going to die because they're not going to get any health care.
Oh, Dana, thank you so much for bringing that up. It's such an important point. And there are about 13,500 of these federally qualified health centers and faith-based centers that are across the country that will apply for this money. The money will be available. We'll actually have an amendment on my bill that will specifically say that the money that is not going to Planned Parenthood will be available to those other agencies that supply not only the same services that are provided at Planned Parenthood, but over and beyond that. Planned Parenthood does not do mammograms. So if there is a woman who needs a mammogram as a result of their diagnosis or their screening at Planned Parenthood, they have to be referred. So why not have them go to the agencies that provide all these services and more than what Planned Parenthood even provides?
Right, yeah, absolutely. I mean, they offer the full suite of services. So and I know that Mitch McConnell has already come out before congressional members returned from recess and was saying, look, I'm not going to make this Planned Parenthood defunding a part of this. We're not going to have a shutdown fight over this. I mean, it's kind of hard to maneuver in the House when you have the Senate Majority Leader basically threatening to shut down efforts on his end.
Well, this is the thing. You don't put up a flag, a white flag, until you've fought the battle. And we haven't fought the battle yet. And so when we pass this in the House, I fully intend on calling upon the leader of the Senate, Mr. McConnell, to bring this bill up. And I'm going to beat the drums and let everyone know that I believe that he at least needs to fight the fight. He doesn't need to give up this battle and say just because the president won't sign it. I think it needs to give full debate over there. It needs to get a vote on it. It needs to be put on the president's desk. Let's show who he really is. Let's show how much he loves Planned Parenthood and how little value he has for the human life. By not even calling upon his attorney general to investigate the potentially illegal activities, as you have already talked about, whether it's the partial birth abortion ban, whether it's altering the way in which an abortion is done, which is prohibited by the NIH Revitalization Act, or whether it's about selling tissues for profit. All three of these are pretty clear in my mind laws that are being broken, but that's why an investigation needs to be done.
Absolutely. Well, and I hope that this is a battle that we can win, and I'm glad to see at least that we have members in the House that are fighting for this. Representative Diane Black with the state of Tennessee, it's good to speak with you. Thank you so much for your efforts on behalf, not just of Americans with this issue, but also, the infants that are under duress here. These videos are horrific. Thank you so much.
Dana, thank you for bringing the subject to the American people.